Whether it be classic Disney, Studio Ghibli, or the rapidly growing anime and general otaku culture, 2D animation has been a staple art form for over 100 years. It's a genre that makes space for insane creativity, one that allows for artists to break the limitations of the real world, showing us characters, landscapes, and cultures we have never seen before. And since the beginning of my critical media journey 3 years ago, this is the medium I've consumed most of, the majority being Japanese animation or manga. But about this time last year, my friends that started it all recommended me yet another series, something that was so alien to my tastes, something that was so different, and yet I couldn't help but just love it. And that was The Wire.
$800.
So what, man? You heard that bump like a motherfucker, man.
Easy for you, McNulty.
I got the shotgun. You got the briefcase.
Ain't about me, Nick!
We stole the money. Why'd you let him play? Got to. It's America, man.
Coming in at number 6 on IMDb's highest rated TV shows, The Wire has established itself as a television classic. The show is set in Baltimore in the early 2000s, directing its focus on different aspects of the city, from the local drug trade to the highest political office in the land, making subtle commentary throughout. Now, I could just wax lyrically about the show in high and abstract terms, or mention the interview the creator of the show had with Barack Obama. But this would paint The Wire as some high-minded, artsy-fartsy show that only truly perspicacious individuals could enjoy. And in my opinion, that would rob The Wire of its greatest strength, that being that is the most real show I've ever experienced. It's insanely grounded, genuine, and intense. Dialogue is gripping, characters are authentic, themes are relevant. These elements culminate in an experience that has opened me to a new aspect of art. And if you are a fan of 2D animations or comics or just storytelling in general, hopefully I can convince you it's worth giving a shot. Welcome to an anime watcher's perspective on The Wire.
Hey man, you been seeing more big bacon be putting out?
Nah, man, I've been seeing big bacon a month.
That shit tie you. You feel tired.
Immersion, the beating heart of entertainment, the element that allows you to be transported from your setting into another, whether it be sport, theatre, TV, or horseshoe cleaning videos on YouTube. Being engaged with the entertainment is often where the magic happens. And in my experience, immersion with a piece of work can often be categorized in one of two different ways. The first being that binge-fueled roller coaster of an experience, having you constantly saying to yourself the famous last words of just one more, all the while being rocketed to the heights of emotion. However, after every peak, there's inevitably a trough, and when that entertainment terminates, you perhaps end up experiencing some of those withdrawal symptoms. However, there's this other immersion that I think The Wire just nails, that being atmospheric immersion. This is the type that engulfs you in its world. Instead of living in the moment in anticipation of the future, you live in the moment for the time that is here right now. It's the feeling of letting the world and aura of the media wash over you. Whether it be Akira, Cowboy Bebop, or those early episodes of Vinland Saga, there is a palpable sense of presentness that accompanies that. And The Wire is exceptional at this. Every scene is filled with background noise of the city. The camera is grounded and personal, not often opting to be abstract and fancy, but instead simple and effective. It's almost like you are listening and watching the characters in person, as if you could be walking in Baltimore and come across these events yourself. And the dialogue, while being a form of perfect speech, is becoming and authentic to each and every character.
You're losing weight. You're down to nothing. In this country, supermarkets are cathedrals.
The best way I find to describe The Wire is that it's sort of an anti-documentary. Instead of taking real life and dramatizing it, it takes fiction and makes it honest and genuine.
English, motherfucker!
This is not to say that these types of immersion are mutually exclusive, don't get it twisted. But what defines these two different types of immersion for me is satiation. The former being an immersion that is demanding more and more to be devoured, and the later being one that leaves me content, pleased with the portion I was served.
You do any accents? English, British, Scottish, something like that?
Crikey. I was looking to get a little hanky-panky, and this one bloke gave me this number to call when I got across the pond.
Work on it, son. Work on it. We're building something here, detective. All the pieces matter.
Another aspect of The Wire I love is how it uses its medium of live action to its advantage. Whereas animation can breathe life into an alien world far from its own, live action is able to recreate the real world with all its scratches and imperfections, making it hauntingly realistic. One of my favorite examples of this is shown in the power of body language. Characters will move with consistent yet subtle bits of acting that help differentiate themselves from others in the cast. Compare how McNulty is always loose and unkempt to Daniel's stiff and upright demeanor. Some of the body language and quirks are much more extreme than others, such as the lovable drug addict Bubbles and the always professional brother Mousson. There are also smaller and more subtle quirks, such as the particular way the monk always does up his blazer, or how Bodhi casually spits insane distances in the background. This is all facilitated by the superb acting, with deliveries of lines further enhancing the fantastic dialogue, adding lovely bits of subtle expression that often encourage you to dig further into what the characters are actually thinking.
Yeah, I could tell.
What the fuck, man? Can you hook a nigga up with $10 then to the mall? I mean, you know, just to carry me, come on.
Bubs.
Obliged.
All of these unique quirks culminate in layers and layers of characterization that would take much longer to do if produced in animation. This is not to say that animation can't do some facial motions more easily than live action. Of course not. Exaggerated facial features are a staple of the medium after all. Furthermore, sometimes you come across animation with superb bits of subtle facial animation, which are often pleasant and cathartic to watch. But in The Wire, the actors give a more rough and organic feeling, giving a unique flavor that I find seldom in animation. This rough, organic quality also carries over to the, well, for lack of a better term, character designs of The Wire. Into the animation, it's often stated that the more lines there are, the more work there is to do, since those additional lines have to be drawn every frame. This makes certain complex items much more time consuming to animate. And oh boy, don't most animators need to be given more time. But what I enjoy most about the quote-unquote character designs in The Wire are just how normal and authentic they look. Maybe I've spent too much time on the internet, but between the clean character artwork to the pristine images people post of themselves online, it's refreshing to see characters have a much more grounded, fallible look to them. Less of those who are perfectly coated in makeup or have a surreal physical form, or those who are drawn in such a way to intrigue your waist rather than your brain. Instead, in The Wire, they show just normal, average, everyday people. A side note to this is that the actors used are incredibly talented, but also somewhat obscure. As a live action normie, going into this, I only really knew Idris Elba and Dominic West, which in turn helped me view these characters as real people because I didn't know the actors beforehand. This is in contrast to being pulled halfway throughout the episode going,
wait, is that the guy from... hey, I'll just Google it.
Sonic! I'm sorry. Really? 100-year convulsion! Sonic! They're so sneaky.
I can get a copy of that for you in the morning. Your partner there. A bit of an asshole.
Because of the strength of these non-verbal communicators, this gives The Wire more creativity and fun with individual scenes. One of my favorite examples of this is in Season 1, Episode 4, when McNulty and Bunk go to investigate a crime scene. Due to the camera work and the scene's pacing, we, the audience, are given the appropriate time to work out what happened here. And when McNulty and Bunk come to their conclusion, we mostly do too, which made me feel rather intelligent. If this was a more typical anime, we may enter into the mind of one of the characters to get an internal monologue to highlight how intelligent these characters are. But this scene opts to show us the coordination and competence of these characters by allowing us to watch them in action. However, The Wire doesn't just leave us in silence. Oh no. It has a delightful dialogue of, and I quote, 6 uses of the phrase, "ah fuck."
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Fuck.
3 motherfuckers.
Motherfucker. Motherfucker. Motherfucker.
And 1 use of each of the following.
Fuck. Motherfuck. Fuckity fuck. Fucker. Fucking A. Fuck me.
And 18 uses of a simple fuck.
Fuck. Fucking fuck. 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 Oh, fuck. 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 Fuck.
Summing to a total of 35 fucks, along with 2 impersonations of a gun given by Jimmy McNulty himself. The link to the scene on YouTube is in the description, and I'd encourage you all to go watch it in full. I hope this proves to be a good example of how The Wire is fun and enjoyable to watch despite the lack of action and its slower pacing. It's a masterclass in semiotics. It's been said that The Wire demands your attention, and I couldn't agree more, but the payoff for that attention is extraordinarily high. But also, The Wire is something that you can just sit back and watch. It's not like an exam, no, there is relief, and it's packed in with some of the funniest dialogue I've ever heard.
Do the chair know we gonna look like some punk ass bitches out there?
Motherfucker, I will.
This show is so quotable, and I find that remarkable. There's a poetic sense to the dialogue and its delivery. But this is not poetry in the orthodox way. No, it's crude, it's honest, and, say it with me, genuine.
Don't matter who did what to who at this point. Fact is, we went to war, and now there ain't no going back. I mean, shit, it's what war is, you know? Once you in it, you in it. If it's a lie, then we fight on that lie. But we gotta fight.
So many of these quotes are so raw and so believable, and the show knows this. At the beginning of each episode, it starts with a quote from someone in that same episode. It's a great touch and it encourages me to pay attention more, so when it's quoted, I can point at the screen in glee, because guess what? I found it.
Thin line between heaven and here.
Despite the use of these different types of communicators, there's one that is noticeably lacking, that being non-diegetic music. The sound and music, aside from a few exceptions, is always organically played from sources within the world. While non-diegetic music can easily elevate a media experience, there can also be downsides to it too. Sometimes I find that music in a scene can spoil me of what is to come, thus robbing me of tension. The benefit of relying on diegetic sources of sound is that it encourages me to tap into that type 2 immersion more easily, as I have to now focus more on the other communicators within the story, focus on what they say, how they say it, how they act, and so on. Jen Ralston, one of the sound editors for the whole show, stated in her Reddit AMA that David Simon is very opposed to the many ways that typical TV audiences are expected to be cued or manipulated into thinking or feeling a reaction to a scene. However, she then states that she tried to evoke the emotion through other diegetic methods. When a character is in a crowded situation he is not comfortable with, listen to the laughter. When McNulty is drunk and on the prowl, listen for dogs barking. One of my favorite examples of this is Omar's repeated rendition of the nursery rhyme, "A Hunting We Will Go," a song that Omar whistles when he is on the hunt looking for a kill. We aren't told how to feel about this song, but nevertheless, it's a song that becomes synonymous with death. If you hear this, you better run, because Omar's coming.
Hey, yo, lesson here, babe. You come at the king, you best not miss.
And did you and Monel shoot your boy Pookie down on Carey Street just like Monel said you did?
Nah, no.
Lie. Lying motherfucker.
Machine is never wrong, son.
The immersion of the audience is further driven by the way the whole story is structured. There's no good or bad guys in The Wire. If there was a protagonist, it could arguably be the city itself, Baltimore. Some characters may get more focus than others, but the perspectives and points of views displayed are numerous. No one gets special treatment, and no one is absolved of real-world consequences because of their role in the story. Nothing that wouldn't happen in real life is off the tables. Any character can die at any time, but simultaneously, any character can succeed too. To take a metaphor from Matthew Matos's Meta Micro video, try saying that 3 times fast, there is a figurative bowl in which pennies are kept. This bowl represents what expectations different art pieces leave within a media climate. This includes, but is not limited to, happy and sad endings. Some pieces of media will have a sad ending and thus leave a proverbial coin. Others will have a happy ending and thus take a coin. If there are too many happy endings, we cease to believe that sad endings are possible. The bowl is barren as there are no sad endings to create stakes. There is a cost to happy endings. Likewise, with too many sad endings, there is no relief. The penny bowl is overflowing. What is the use of money if you don't use it? After all,
Man, money ain't got no owners, only spenders.
both extremes lead to emotional numbness. Why get invested if you already know the outcome? Our investment is built upon uncertainty, and The Wire uses this proverbial penny bowl to create its own internal economy. You may be rooting for different individuals to get a happy ending, but you'll never be fully satisfied. Some people will lose, others will win. The innocent may be damned, and the corrupt may live free. There are no reasons to wait for a higher moral power to act. There is just the game, and we are all the players. If you have spent any time getting invested in competitive games, whether it be sport, speedrunning, board games, etc., the most effective tactics available will be developed. The meta game. This is the game played beyond the game, the methodology for the most likely success. I remember when I had to take my physics GCSE exam and my teacher told our class 50% of the exam is based on your knowledge, but the second 50% is based on how you answer the questions. See, even in a system directly created to examine your skills based on your merits, you still have to play the game. Because where there is an objective, a goal, you better believe there is a best strategy to reach it. And it's this framing of life that The Wire leaves with its most poignant thought. Just as evolution via natural selection is amoral, so is the game within The Wire. All of the cast finds itself in some sort of game, some set of rules, some set of restrictions. Something stopping them from playing how they want to because of the other participants involved. The game is life, and within this game, we all play. You cannot opt out of the game, but only try and play another one.
Game is out there, and it's either play or get played.
This game is rigged.
The game is rigged, but you cannot lose if you do not play.
So our names can ring out on some fucking ghetto street corners, man. Nah, man, there's games beyond the fucking game.
The Wire focuses on Baltimore and the games within it, whether it be on the streets, police department, political office, school system, press, port, there is always a game, and these all overlap and intertwine. The only way to change the game is to get enough people to change how they play it. However, there are always those who want to preserve the status quo, and those who have optimized the game for their own success. For every crab that attempts to escape the bucket, there's always another one pulling them back in. And so we have come full circle. While Immersion is perhaps predicated on sucking you into another world, The Wire can do this while scarily imitating our own. The Wire is not escapist, but it taps into that joy, that frustration, that hurt and relief that you feel in real life. It immerses you because it is real, not despite it.
Let's walk.
Before I wrap this up, I should address some issues I had with the series, or maybe issues some people should be aware of. The main stickler for many people is how much slower and methodical it is compared to other TV shows. The structure for each season is done in such a way that lots of the plot points seem unrelated at first, but as the season progresses, all the pieces come together. This maybe takes around 5 to 7 hour-long episodes to get into the full swing of things, which is a long time for those who are used to anime. The classic 3-episode rule will not do you favors here. That's not to say The Wire is boring, on the contrary, I found it very engaging, but it takes a certain mindset to feel ready to watch The Wire. It's not comfort food, it's more intense and requires your attention. The Wire is also a very male-centered show. The majority of the focus is on its male characters and their experiences. This made many moments very relatable to me as a guy. The locker room talk of some of the police department was all too relatable to me.
Anybody. I want more than one. I want the Olsen twins. You got them. Slaves. All they live for is to get you off. But so now who are you gonna do for them? One guy, one act, one time. Right, and the minute I name a guy, you're gonna be like, I knew you were a cocksucker from the first time I laid eyes on you. Steve McQueen, huh? That's your fantasy? You fucking closet case motherfucker. Steve McQueen? Fuck you.
However, many of the female characters aren't given as much time. That's not to say they aren't well written, realistic, and strong, but instead that they don't get the focus. Even the female character that is most prominent, Kima Greggs, felt written in such a way that was more stereotypically masculine to me. But that's just what I noticed on my initial run-through. Finally, one criticism I could level at The Wire is that it often doesn't state a solution for the problems it discusses, and that's totally fine. These issues aren't easily resolved, but this kind of muddies the message of the show. Despite what the creator of the show says, I can't read the ending as anything but a cyclical view of the world. History seems to be repeating itself with no fundamental positive change. To many, this is perhaps a bonus. It's what makes the show so realistic after all. Life doesn't have many easy answers. However, at some points, it makes the critique feel a little hollow. In order to fix a problem, you need to have a comprehensive analysis of what is going wrong, something that The Wire does very well. However, you also need to propose solutions, something The Wire intentionally is reluctant to give, and arguably wants to stamp out.
When did this shit change?
That being said, despite not coming away from the series with any tangible lessons, The Wire instills something else, something that I don't want to diminish the value of. That being understanding and empathy. These famous words, often attributed to that devilish despot, are ones that a part of me wish were not true. Every day, countless horrors of the world surrounds us, with many suffering far more than I ever will or ever know. All because they are born into that situation, born into a different game. But the motionless and bland way that some of these tragedies are communicated to us, in addition with the numbers already being too large to even comprehend, just leaves me with apathy. There have been over 4 million deaths due to COVID, but I will never be able to properly care about them because no one I know has died of it. To me, it is just a statistic. I have to process it as a statistic because if I was to fully understand it and comprehend it, it would be overwhelming. My monkey brain couldn't handle it. But stories are a portal into this. It's an opportunity to grow and learn. After all, this is what the most famous storytellers are known for. Jesus' parables, Aesop's fables, Dostoevsky's novels, Orwell's writings. Furthermore, there are many famous modern-day examples, from Fullmetal Alchemist's final truth being that your human connection and relationships being that of utmost importance, to Attack on Titan's lessons on perspective and understanding of one another, to Avatar's teaching on becoming your own avatar yourself by interacting and incorporating other people's cultures into your own life. All these stories have teachings that can reveal much about yourself and how you can grow from them. But none I have seen do it quite like The Wire. Its ability to take an alien area of life and expose it to a middle-class white Brit such as myself is nothing short of incredible. It is through the use of statistics is able to craft the context that I might be able to slightly see into the issues of the day, to merge statistics with sorrows, facts with feelings, education with emotion, for my monkey brain to not see these peoples as numbers but as humans, to increase my understanding of everyone involved. It's not fully comprehensive, and I can't fully know the veracity of this series. After all, it's already technologically out of date, but still, it's a small glimpse into that part of the world so that I might know and understand it better. The Wire, over its 60-hour runtime, has so much going for it. The atmosphere of Cowboy Bebop, the depth of cast of Fullmetal Alchemist, the plot tightness of Odd Taxi, the cathartic dialogue of Black Lagoon, the authentic expressions of Beastars, the ponderance of Evangelion, and like, what else can I say but go watch The Wire? Every so often, you come across a work of fiction that exudes this sense of unquantifiable greatness, a feeling that you're watching something truly special that you won't be able to find again. But like that proverbial penny bowl, for every disappointing, unengaging, frustrating piece of art we come across, it leaves a coin for the masterpieces to have a greater impact on us in the future.